What's the most important things you look for when you're looking in for real estate?
I think one thing that we were looking for was like the mix of residential and kind of commercial around. And at the time, pre-COVID, we were looking for a pretty much straight split of 50-50. It felt like that felt about right. Again, given the world that we now live in, I think that would have maybe shifted a little bit more towards people working where they live as opposed to where they work. I think there's probably a bit of a shift of people working 3 days a week, so therefore they'd like to train nearer where they live. So we're lucky in the fact that where we ended up landing, we have got a nice split, and it is quite residential as well. But originally, the location-wise, we were looking for that split. When we were looking around sites, as everyone knows that's kind of started playing around with their numbers, one of the biggest cost you're going to have is your fit out, and it can range from a paint job to something from shell and core where you're building all the walls and putting the floor in. And it was just weighing up that decision of getting the location right, but not having too much of a cost as well. And there is a fine balance between, they have to be nice, don't get me wrong. So there's a fine balance between them being nice and that boutique feel, and almost, but you can also spend too much on your fit out and be a bit wasted, and it's going to be one of your biggest costs. So that was one of the biggest things that we were constantly playing with. And we had quotes on our fit out. We went from shell and core, so there's a lot of work to be done. There was a difference in about 70 to 100 grand from different fit out teams. So again, don't get me wrong, members would enjoy a gold tap, but they don't need them. But there is also that kind of balance between a CrossFit gym where it's very dusty, often quite dark, that it needs to be more of a premium product than that in terms of the towels you're using and things like that. So that whole balance is carefully done, and it's something that you need to kind of really kind of consider, because you want to be keeping your costs low, but really kind of push for as much kind of premium feel as possible. That was definitely one thing. The other thing as well, when you are looking at your locations, the biggest thing, and you'll have done it all with your cash flow models, is trying to engage and get this rent-free period, because that is a game changer. It just takes pressure off. And I think the tenant is now king, as opposed to when we were looking at spaces, we were in the destiny of the landlord, and we almost had no space to negotiate. Whereas I think if you're looking and engaging in conversation with landlords now, you should be really pushing hard on good rent-free periods, and then be as creative as you can with that. So if, let's say, they were generous and gave you 10 months rent-free or 12 months rent-free, try and break it if you can, where maybe you get 6 months rent-free, and then the remaining 6 months split into 12 months half rent and things like that. As much pay as you can, push away from when you're opening. It just takes your pressure off you, and it allows you to make the right decisions, as opposed to being worried about how many members you're getting in. You can worry about services and deliver a really good product. So again, if you can have these conversations with landlords, it makes a huge difference. So keep your costs to a level that are manageable. Don't spend an extra 100 grand on your fit out because you want something a bit special in the changing rooms. So manage that balance, and then work really hard to get a good deal with your landlord. And I think there will be some great deals to be had at the moment.